Sometimes a machine is built not because anyone asked for it, but because the engineers in the room refuse to accept limits. A moment when ambition outweighs practicality, when comfort becomes a statement, and when quiet confidence matters more than flash or noise. This story is about a flagship that represented the peak of a certain philosophy. A period when cost was a secondary concern and durability, presence, and absolute refinement were the goals. It came from an era before efficiency and software defined status. When size, silence, and effortless power shaped the identity of prestige. And while times changed, and expectations shifted, the lessons from this machine still echo today in how we talk about purpose, value, and what counts as true luxury. If you enjoy deep dives into vehicles that change the conversation, remember to like, subscribe, and comment what model you want to see next. The Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 did not begin as a car project. It began as a declaration that the highest tier of luxury engineering should have no compromises. To understand how it came to represent that idea, we need to look at its origin, its purpose, and the expectations of the automotive world in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Luxury automobiles of the time were shifting rapidly. Buyers expected more refinement, more power, and more isolation from the outside world, yet the competition between leading manufacturers was tightening. Every company wanted to claim the title of producing the definitive flagship sedan. For Mercedes-Benz, the predecessor to the W140 had already set a high bar, yet internal leadership felt that the next car needed to surpass all known standards. Engineers were given freedom rarely seen in modern vehicle development, and they approached the project with a philosophy that engineering decisions should not be constrained by cost targets. The development process stretched longer than anticipated, and costs rose. But this was seen not as a failure but as a necessary step to achieve something extraordinary. The result was a sedan engineered to maintain composure at high speeds, offer exceptional passenger comfort, and present a commanding road presence that conveyed prestige without exaggeration. Every detail was considered, from chassis rigidity to interior climate isolation. To understand why the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 holds such significance, we first look at its technical goals. The mission was to create smoothness and silence at a level not commonly experienced. The 6.0-liter V12 engine was selected not primarily for power, though it delivered generous performance, but for the quality of its output. The refinement, the steadiness, and the effortless acceleration it allowed. It was not about speed contests. It was about maintaining composure and serenity even when the vehicle was under stress or high load. The cabin was designed to float away disturbances, both auditory and tactile. Special insulation was applied around the engine bay, the door skins, and even within the trunk structure. Double-pane windows were included because standard glass could not isolate sound to the level engineers demanded. Doors and trunk lids were equipped with soft close mechanisms not as a gimmick, but to ensure the cabin environment remained consistent and refined during everyday use. The seat structure, climate control sensors, and suspension calibration were not just well-tuned. They reflected a philosophy that comfort should not be dramatic or attention-grabbing, but nearly invisible in operation. In the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998, comfort was not a feature to be advertised. It was something a passenger would simply feel without noticing. However, this period of engineering excess did not exist in a vacuum. Economic conditions were shifting globally, and consumer tastes were beginning to change. Buyers were starting to value more efficiency, lower weight, and increasing technology integration rather than pure material over-engineering. The Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 found itself positioned as both the peak of one era and the product of a philosophy that was already beginning to fade. Its size, once considered a mark of status, would soon be criticized by some for being too imposing or too heavy. The level of complexity inside its components would later translate into high ownership and maintenance costs, something that luxury customers were becoming less willing to accept. Yet at the time of its release, it was received as a masterpiece of refinement, a vehicle that conveyed not just luxury but authority and permanence. The interior reflected thoughtful craftsmanship. The materials were chosen to age gracefully, the controls placed with ergonomic consideration, and the seating designed for comfort during long journeys rather than short bursts of driving excitement. The driving experience emphasized stability, calm, and confidence. Steering feedback was measured rather than sharp, acceleration felt like a continuous wave rather than a sudden surge, and the ride maintained composure across varied road surfaces. The Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 was not a vehicle meant to be rushed or thrown into corners. It was meant to glide, to maintain presence, to travel distances while protecting occupants from stress and fatigue. In many ways, it represented the idea that true luxury is not about showcasing features, but about removing discomfort and distraction. In the market context of the time, manufacturers were competing aggressively for flagship recognition. Another manufacturer might emphasize more dramatic styling or more daring performance tuning, but Mercedes-Benz approached the flagship category with a calm, almost academic confidence. They did not need to prove dominance through spectacle. They believed their approach to engineering quality spoke for itself. Yet the result was a car that some observers found almost intimidating in its sense of seriousness. The Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 had presence. It was a vehicle that appeared solid, deliberate, and sure of its purpose. It did not chase trends because it was built to outlast them. Public reactions varied. Admirers saw it as the highest form of automotive luxury engineering, while critics claimed it was out of step with changing times. But both sides acknowledged its significance. It represented a level of craftsmanship and over-engineering that would be rare in the decades that followed. The W140 platform, particularly in V12 form, demonstrated what happens when engineers are instructed to build the best version of something rather than the most profitable or efficient version. It stood apart from vehicles that compromised to meet cost targets or design trends. It was the result of a philosophy that believed the product should set the standard rather than respond to it. Understanding this context allows us to appreciate the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 not just as a luxury car, but as a cultural and industrial artifact. It captured the essence of an era when mechanical solutions were favored over software abstractions, when refinement came from precision engineering rather than digital compensation, and when brand identity was defined by substance rather than marketing narratives. As the industry evolved toward different priorities, the W140 remained a symbol of what luxury once meant. This foundation sets the tone for the next part of the story, where we look deeper into how the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 balanced ambition, cost, and practicality, and why its engineering choices became both its strength and its challenge in the years that followed. The Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 stands at the center of a discussion about what happens when engineering ambition reaches levels that exceed typical consumer expectations. In this segment, we expand on how the design philosophy, material selection, mechanical complexity, and ownership experience reflected both the strengths and challenges of this vehicle. When engineers began developing the W140 platform, they did so with a goal to create not only a superior driving experience but also a vehicle that could maintain its refinement and function over long periods of use. Longevity and consistency were core values. This meant that major systems, from suspension components to climate control units, were designed with redundancy and durability in mind. Everything had to work not just under ideal conditions, but reliably across years of use, varying climates, and different road environments. The 6.0-liter V12 engine exemplified this approach. Instead of pursuing performance numbers meant to impress on paper, the engine emphasized smooth combustion cycles, balanced operation at different RPM ranges, and seamless power delivery without vibration or strain. However, the decision to engineer components to this standard also introduced long-term ownership considerations. Parts that were so well designed and so complex were not inexpensive to replace when they eventually needed service. The level of precision that contributed to the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 being so refined also meant maintenance required specialized expertise. This would later become a point of discussion among collectors and enthusiasts who admired the car but recognized the commitment involved in caring for it. The vehicle's electrical systems followed a similar philosophy. The engineers chose to integrate comfort and convenience features that required additional modules, sensors, and actuators, including advanced climate management systems, memory seat controls, and adaptive functions for various interior adjustments. These features worked harmoniously when new, reinforcing the sense of effortless luxury, yet they introduced a level of complexity that exceeded most mainstream sedans of the era. In everyday operation, these systems allowed the cabin of the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 to feel controlled, insulated, and personalized. However, time, temperature fluctuations, and repeated use could lead to component wear that required thoughtful maintenance. This duality defined the ownership experience. The car delivered something extraordinary, but extraordinary systems often demand extraordinary care. The suspension design, particularly models equipped with self-leveling functions, contributed to remarkable ride comfort. The car settled itself to maintain optimal ride height and stability, creating a smooth driving experience even on imperfect road surfaces. But hydraulic and mechanical sophistication required precise upkeep. Neglect could lead to cascading wear, reinforcing the idea that this was a car best suited to owners who valued and understood what such engineering required. Public perception of the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 evolved over time. Initially, many saw it as a statement of ultimate luxury and craftsmanship. Its presence communicated respect and authority. In corporate circles and diplomatic contexts, the vehicle conveyed seriousness and professionalism. Yet as global economic conditions shifted in the late 1990s, attitudes regarding automotive excess changed. Buyers began prioritizing efficiency, lighter construction, and newer digital technology features. The W140 had been engineered primarily using mechanical and material solutions, while emerging vehicles increasingly relied on software-based systems to create similar comfort effects. This shift marked an industry transition, and the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998, while still respected, began to stand as a representative of the older philosophy. It was not outdated in terms of quality or capability. Rather, it was a product of a different mindset, one where luxury was expressed through physical refinement rather than digital interface sophistication. When examining the market, this distinction is important because it explains why some owners became lifelong advocates of the W140, while others transitioned to newer models seeking different forms of convenience and technology integration. Despite changing consumer preferences, the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 maintained appeal among individuals who valued craftsmanship, stability, and the sense of calm it provided. Long-distance travel in the vehicle demonstrated its strengths. Noise levels remained remarkably low, the engine operation produced minimal vibration, and the cabin environment felt controlled in a way that encouraged relaxation. Driving dynamics were designed to reduce stress rather than emphasize excitement. The steering offered measured response, the ride felt consistent across varying speeds, and acceleration remained smooth and predictable. These qualities positioned the vehicle for individuals who prioritized comfort and refinement over dynamic driving performance. If one compares it with more performance-focused sedans of its time, the W140 appears less eager to respond sharply. But this was intentional. The vehicle was not designed for aggressive cornering or spirited driving, but for confident, composed travel in any condition. This distinction remains relevant when considering how the car is viewed by enthusiasts today. Those who approach it expecting performance thrills may misunderstand its core purpose, while those who appreciate its calm and deliberate design find lasting enjoyment in its character. The cost of ownership became a defining topic as the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 aged. Parts and service could be expensive, and some components were not readily available at all service centers. This occasionally gave the vehicle a reputation for being demanding. However, this view overlooks the fact that the car was engineered to be maintained within a certain framework of expertise and resources. When maintained properly, the W140 demonstrated durability far exceeding many vehicles that prioritized lower maintenance cost at the expense of long-term resilience. Owners who committed to upkeep often reported that the car remained solid, quiet, and reliable for many years beyond typical vehicle lifespans. In this sense, evaluating the W140 requires an understanding of the relationship between initial design philosophy and the realities of continued use. Products built to a high standard often retain value when treated accordingly. From a cultural perspective, the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 reflected an era when automotive luxury was defined by confidence and discretion. There was no need for external flash, exaggerated styling, or unnecessary detail. The vehicle's character communicated status through presence and experience rather than display. This contrasts with later luxury trends that emphasized bold design elements and digital interface complexity. The W140 represented a quieter form of prestige, one that valued refinement and control. Even today, when seen on the road, it conveys a sense of dignity and seriousness. This enduring presence contributes to its continued reputation among collectors, enthusiasts, and individuals who appreciate thoughtful engineering. Understanding this balance of engineering ambition, practical ownership, and cultural influence helps clarify why the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 continues to generate strong opinions. The Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 serves as a turning point in how luxury automobiles were conceived. In this segment we examine its legacy, the lessons it left behind, and how its influence shaped future expectations of what a flagship sedan should represent. When the W140 era concluded, the automotive landscape was changing. Manufacturers were shifting toward lighter construction, increased software-based features, and cost-sensitive development. The W140 successor took a different approach, prioritizing efficiency and reduced complexity, signaling that the era of engineering without strict cost boundaries had ended. In this sense, the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 did not simply close a chapter. It marked the conclusion of a philosophy that valued material robustness and mechanical excellence above all else. However, the significance of the W140 did not diminish with time. Instead, it became clearer as automotive luxury evolved. As newer models introduced layers of digital automation and touch-based interfaces, some drivers and enthusiasts began to notice a difference in feel. The solidity, permanence, and deliberate calm of the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 represented something increasingly rare. This car did not rely on software patches or frequent feature updates to maintain its identity. Its luxury was built into its structure, its mechanical balance, and the refinement of its physical components. Even as technology improved, many observers recognized that certain forms of luxury are difficult to replicate through screens or electronic abstraction. The sense of weight, silence, and physical presence embodied by the W140 remained distinct. Collectors and enthusiasts began to re-evaluate the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 as more than a product of its time. It became an artifact of an engineering culture that placed durability and refinement above marketing-driven feature sets. In specialized ownership communities, the car gained respect for its clarity of purpose. It was not trying to excel at every possible function, but rather to perfect the core experience of travel. It inspired a renewed discussion about what defines premium quality. Is it measured by the number of digital conveniences, or by how a vehicle feels after decades of use under varying conditions? The continued admiration for the W140 suggests that fundamentals still matter. Weight distribution, material consistency, acoustic isolation, and mechanical balance are not easily replaced by software updates or styling refreshes. The broader cultural memory of the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 highlights how luxury expectations shift over time. Early in its life, critics pointed to its size, cost, and complexity as signs of excess. Yet as mass production and cost efficiency became more prominent industry priorities, the car's uncompromising engineering began to look less like indulgence and more like craftsmanship. Time reframed perception. What was once questioned became admired. The sedan now stands as an example of how products shaped by clear philosophy maintain identity long after changing trends fade. It reminds manufacturers and consumers that luxury is not only about newness. It is also about care, intention, and depth of execution. The lessons of the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 extend beyond the automotive world. It demonstrates how design decisions reflect values. It shows that creating something meant to last requires investment, patience, and a willingness to accept complexity in the pursuit of quality. It suggests that refinement is not always obvious or easily marketed. Sometimes it is quiet, subtle, and understood only through experience. And it reinforces the idea that while markets change and efficiency becomes a priority, there remains enduring appeal in products that aim to be the best version of themselves rather than the most convenient to produce. With these ideas in mind, we can now step back and summarize what the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 ultimately represents. In the closing section, we will bring together the historical context, engineering philosophy, and legacy impact to conclude the story of this important flagship sedan. The Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 represents a moment when engineering ambition took precedence over cost accounting, and understanding its meaning requires reflecting on why it was created and how it has been remembered. Throughout its design and development, the goal was to deliver a level of refinement that could be felt but not necessarily noticed directly. The smoothness of the V12 engine, the insulation of the cabin, and the stability of the ride were not theatrical displays but quiet expressions of engineering intent. The world around it changed, and luxury trends shifted toward lighter construction, digital features, and software-based customization. Yet the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 holds enduring relevance because it provides a baseline for discussing what luxury once meant. It was built to last not only in physical durability but in the clarity of the experience it delivered. It did not require exaggerated styling or bold technological demonstrations to assert its identity. As time passed, enthusiasts and collectors revisited the car and found value in its consistency. It did not chase novelty, and therefore it aged with dignity. The dialogue around the Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 reveals how consumer expectations can shift quickly while core values, such as comfort, refinement, and confidence, remain meaningful. When viewed alongside later flagships, its approach appears distinct. Modern luxury vehicles often emphasize screen-based interfaces and adjustable driving personalities, while the W140 focused on reducing stress, removing harshness, and supporting calm travel. These qualities explain why it continues to earn respect among those who value authenticity in engineering. Its significance lies not in being the fastest, flashiest, or most technologically complex vehicle, but in being one of the clearest expressions of a philosophy that believed luxury should be felt as an absence of effort. The Mercedes-Benz W140 S600 1998 challenges us to consider what automotive excellence means and whether true comfort comes from layering features or from refining fundamentals. For enthusiasts, it stands as a reminder that craftsmanship has depth, that design decisions reflect priorities, and that a product can hold relevance long after trends evolve. If this vehicle encourages us to look more thoughtfully at what we value in the machines we choose, then it continues to fulfill its purpose as a standard-bearer of thoughtful luxury. Thank you for spending time with this story. If you enjoyed this deep dive, like and subscribe, and share what vehicle you want explored next.